Welcome to the Triangle Report. I'm Michael Windermute, and I've been an avid news reader and studied history and followed history for most of my life. And one thing I noticed with social media is that there's a lot of information that isn't backed up with really facts or any kind of journalism or research. There's truth and perceived truth, and sadly perceived truth is often what people follow. The name The Triangle Report is based on the three sides to every story: yours, mine, and the truth. Recently I was on LinkedIn and there was an article written by a gentleman named Shaun. I'm going to read some of the points that he makes in his article. His heading is, "The Liberal establishment just pulled off the greatest hijack in history. One man will appoint 100 of 105 senators, none elected by the people. Real power isn't just about who's in charge today, it's about who controls tomorrow." In 2016, Trudeau introduced what he called an independent advisory board for Senate appointments. Sounds nice and democratic, right? But here's what they're not telling you. The board only makes non-binding recommendations. Trudeau has the final say. And there's a number of points here, a number that go on about the same thing and about the Senate and power in the federal government. So the word hijack means taking control of something, usually a plane, a car, a ship, and changing its direction. Or it can also mean an unauthorized takeover or manipulation. Let's have a little look at the history of Canada. So the B&A Act of 1867 brought together what were then 4 provinces under the federal jurisdiction called the Dominion of Canada. As Canada was under the rule of the United Kingdom, our government is based on the Westminster system that the United Kingdom uses, and that system has 3 levels of government. It has a head of state, which is a ceremonial position, being a king or queen. In Canada, it's the Governor General, who represents the king or queen, and 2 houses, the upper house and lower house. The upper house in the UK, United Kingdom, is the House of Lords, and in Canada, the Senate. The upper house, the members are appointed by the monarch in UK and by the Governor General, who represents the monarch in Canada, at the advice of the Prime Minister. The lower house, the House of Commons, are the members of the Parliament, which are elected, and while the upper house sounds like it's more dominant, it's actually the lower house, or the House of Parliament, that is really the dominant house. In 1867, vacancies in the Senate have been appointed by the Governor General of Canada at the advice of the Prime Minister, usually along party lines. So a Liberal Prime Minister would appoint Liberal-leaning senators. A Conservative Prime Minister would appoint Conservative-leaning senators. So there's been lots of discussion over the past 158 years about Senate reform, the first being in 1874, just 7 years after the B&A Act was first put into place. And the first change to the Senate didn't happen until 1965, when a retirement age was set at 75. Now, during my lifetime, there's been ongoing talk about the need for Senate reform, usually the belief that the Senate should be elected, which I agree. The Senate reform was included in the Meech Lake Accord of 1987 and the Charlottetown Accord of 1992, both of which failed to pass. Interestingly, in researching this topic, I found out that the Constitution Act, which I didn't know prior to this, of 1867, was a provision whereby 4 or 8 extra senators may be appointed by the Prime Minister, but no other appointments to the Senate can take place until those 4 or 8 seats have been reduced back to what is now the 105 seats. So once it goes below 105, the Prime Minister can then start appointing senators again. This provision has only been used once in 1990 by Prime Minister Brian Mulroney to ensure the passage of the bill creating the GST, as I was concerned it would not pass otherwise. During the time Stephen Harper was Prime Minister, the Senate had an expense scandal, and I should point out that Prime Minister Harper had nothing to do with the scandal. Prime Minister Harper had been a vocal advocate for an elected Senate for many years, and this gave him reason to try and make change. He withheld any further appointments and tried to make changes, but these were blocked by the Supreme Court in 2014, which stated that in order for to make a change, a constitutional change, it would require 7 provinces that had a combined population of at least 50% plus 1. After the Supreme Court loss, Prime Minister Harper asked the provinces to come up with a plan to appoint senators. In 2015, Prime Minister Harper called an election, which I am sure he did not intend to lose, but the Liberals ended up winning the election, and Mr. Trudeau came into power with 22 vacancies in the Senate, courtesy of Prime Minister Harper. Prior to Justin Trudeau elected Prime Minister, he had also called for Senate reform. In 2014, he decided to expel all Liberal senators from his caucus, giving them the freedom to vote their conscience, not necessarily along Liberal Party lines. He also committed to change the way senators were appointed should he be elected Prime Minister. After the election of 2015, Mr. Trudeau introduced a merit-based appointment process for Senate eligibility. Independent applicants, not necessarily affiliated with any political party, could put their name forward, and a 5-member advisory board would approve one of the applicants. This was Prime Minister Trudeau's attempt to make the Senate less partisan without requiring constitutional change. The independent, non-aligned senators became more numerous than either of the party caucuses for the first time in Canadian history. It should be noted that Prime Minister Trudeau has accepted all the recommendations of the advisory board. Was the advisory board a good idea? Some provinces refused to participate, feeling the process might lend some legitimacy to the Senate. I leave that question up to you. Any elected party can return to the partisan system of appointing senators along party lines. So let's review the greatest hijack in Canadian political history regarding the Senate and Prime Minister Trudeau. I was surprised that Prime Minister Trudeau would appoint 100 of 105 senators during his 9 years in office, but that's what happened. For Prime Minister Trudeau to manipulate this event, he would have to have planned this going back some 10 or 20 years before he became Prime Minister. He would have to have known he would be elected Prime Minister in 2015. He would have to have been capable of influencing both Liberal and Conservative Prime Ministers regarding their choices to make sure that these Senate appointments would retire, resign, or pass away while he was in office. As well, he would have had somehow created the Senate expense scandal, knowing that Harper would not appoint 22 senators. The number of appointments was nothing more than coincidental. I have no doubt that Shaun cares about Canada as I do. But the facts speak for themselves. Since 1867, the Governor-General has appointed all senators at the advice of the Prime Minister. Regardless of what Prime Minister Trudeau may have done, is thought to have done, accused of doing, laws he may have broken, or holidays he may have taken at taxpayer expense, one thing he did not do was pull off the greatest hijack in Canadian history regarding the Canadian Senate appointments. Being a journalist is hard work, requiring extensive research. There's truth and perceived truth, information and misinformation. We don't fail as a person, we don't fail as a family, and we don't fail as a country by telling the truth. We fail by believing in misinformation and lies.